So that was essentially our intent. It was developed with the idea to kind of force the company to achieve the results and help explain why throughput made certain decisions, as you'll see clearly in looking at some of these modules here. So let me get to it. So the Celero-Optima portal contains 4 web-based applications. Okay, it is designed to lead you as throughput users to achieve full use of throughput and its historical data, and further improve results. So the payback from signing up on the portal is really moving the company to the next step and bridging the gap of information that you may need to do that. Okay. The COP is cloud-based. It can also be installed on premise, but the information we extract and put on our server and can be accessible to anybody authorized in your company is pretty benign. There's no engineering or heavy proprietary information that we're extracting. So usually people will go with the cloud-based option. It uses throughput existing data, and you'll recognize it here in a second. And it also collects additional throughput and ERP data in certain cases. So there is the way we are bringing it to market is we are not charging any software license cost, initial cost. It requires a one-time setup fee where we go and install it and make sure that the data feeding the portal is accurate and all the information necessary is there. And then we charge a monthly usage fee with an initial minimum number of months. So we ask you to commit for 3 months at the beginning to kind of absorb the cost of the setup time and get you really fully using it before you make a decision to keep it or not. And the monthly cost obviously varies based on the number of applications that you've used. What I'm going to demonstrate today very quickly, a very quick overview, is going to be the 4 applications that are available on the portal. So those 4 modules, let me just describe them at a high level and dive right into them, okay? So we have a constraints analysis tool that allows to collect, without user assistance or user involvement, it collects the historical causes for pushouts. So it provides a root cause analysis on material and drum pushouts. We install an application on throughput on your server that literally runs throughput through the entire material planning session and collects all the pushouts and all the causes for those pushouts. Then it goes through a drum pushout. If you're using drums, you've defined drums in your model, and it does exactly the same. It collects that drum pushout information. You'll see that in a second. Overall equipment effectiveness, by standard industry terms, basically OEE is the output you should expect from a work center in perfect condition. So how close are you to that? And we measure that using this application in the portal. Master planning comes from basically a gross to net explosion model. And a lot of you, if you're using XA, are familiar with the MPSP module or may have used it in the past. And it basically brings that application or the information it brings and provides alerts, so you don't have to spend time looking, over part and part, scanning through parts to find exceptions that you need to worry about. So you'll see those alerts here in a second. And finally, schedule adherence. It measures how well work centers are following the schedule. We get caught every other implementation of throughput where the company thinks that they're using the software well, planners are creating a great schedule, but we're not really tracking how well the shop floor is executing those schedules. So that's what the schedule adherence tool provides. So you'll all see that in a second. So let's dive right into it and start with the constraints analysis, okay? So I'm going to log on to our portal. So our portal is web-based, so it is, you can access it via a browser from anywhere within the company or actually in the world if you're connected to the network. And every user gets a login and password. And there you go. So in the main menu, we have, and I believe we're starting, yes, we're starting with constraints analysis. So let me dive right into it. So here's the portal main screen, dive right into the constraints analysis screen. And basically what you see on this screen is for any date when you decided, for which you decided to run the constraints analysis tool, you have the entire history of the root causes for pushouts. So I'm going to start with the grid view here of the pushed orders. And that brings up essentially a matrix that looks like this. Let me zoom out here a little bit so we can get more data displayed. So it is basically showing a very large grid, okay, that shows on the y-axis, it shows all the demand, so the order number or anything that has been pushed out in by a material or by drum. It shows the part number, part description, customer to which this order belongs, the quantity, and the target date. And as you know, the target date is only as it says, the term says, it's a date you're starting with or you're trying to hit with throughput. And then the final date and the number of days for the push out. Okay, so if you scroll down to the first page, there's a number of customer orders that were pushed out. I'm going to go and show you here the second page. And at the top of the second page, I'm going to take an example here where we have a customer order 941120, or actually 94112. We're using a 5-digit customer order code. And we're pushing out, the target date is initially 12/12, and there was a push out done for 12/23. On the x-axis, starting in this column, you have the raw material number. And under that, you see which date this particular raw material pushed out any particular any customer order. So in this grid, for instance, you can see that a number of demands were pushed out by a raw material here at the top. And so what I'm going to do is drill down, and you've seen the screen I'm about to access here in the past. I'm just going to go and log on to a second session, go to the constraints analysis, go to the parts view, show everything. And there you go. So you'll recognize this screen as the drill down for the material constraints screen. So the same columns are reproduced here: the part number, the vendor number, minimum lead time, minimum due date, the supply, starting with the quantity on hand, and the projected on hand is there as well, with on the right hand side the information you're familiar with. Sometimes it's an open MO, sometimes it's a planned work order, but you're seeing the detail and the timing of the consumption of each raw material. And this grid actually basically shows all raw materials for an entire material constraints and drum push-out session. So what I'm going to do here is enter the part number I'm looking for. Here it is. And you read this exactly the same way you would read the constraints analysis drill down. So here's the part number. We start with a quantity on hand of 0. There is a PO for 200 coming in on 11/11, which we ideally would need to expedite to 10/31, and it's being consumed by 2 planned MOs that go into different demands. And here's PO 050403 coming in on 12/23 that should be expedited to 12/12. So if we go back to our example, here's this customer order here, pushed out by a given raw material. And again, you don't have to run the material constraints. You don't have to collect anything. This information is generated automatically for you. So this could be given to customer service or purchasing for them to try and do some expediting. So we're pushing out this customer order to a final date of 12/23 by 11 days because the second PO has to be expedited to 12/12. If we can't do it, here is the result. Here's what the result will be. Here's what the projected completion will be for this given customer order. Okay, so this is for some throughput users a dream come true because they can never identify the causes for the pushouts, or why are we not trying to hit the safety stock or a forecast earlier. This gives you the detailed explanation as if you could go into throughput, run an entire session until you hit that raw material, and then give that explanation to customer service, for instance. Okay, so that's just a quick overview on the constraints analysis. Let me go back to the portal. The next module we're going to look at is OEE, or overall equipment effectiveness. I want to give a brief industry standard definition for OEE. It is basically the result of availability, performance, and quality combined. Essentially, it means how many parts were produced, how many good parts were produced versus how many should have been produced. But we're also factoring the constraints management theory in our calculations. Let me show you what that looks like. Excuse me. So let's drill down to overall equipment effectiveness. I'm going to pick a week, 4/23, let's say, and bring up the results. So here's what you get on the initial screen. Okay, you have work centers sorted by constraints and non-constraints, and they're associated on any given day, or this is also available on a weekly basis if a day is too granular for you. And it highlights the low percentage OEE, and basically 80 to 100% is yellow. Lower than 80% OEE is displayed in red, and 100% or more is displayed in green. Sometimes OEE much greater than 100%, such as I think the largest we have here is about 110, which isn't too bad, but a significantly larger than 100% OEE measurement would mean that the standards are wrong, or we're really not, something strange is going on there that we need to look into, but probably not as severe and not as urgent as very low OEE, for instance, 44%. Okay. Now, the connection isn't done in this version of the portal yet because we're struggling. I mean, we're in the process of thinking about how do we display the information behind that number. Do we display the list of MOs, the number of good parts, the standard? So we're going to come up with a way to display that, but essentially in the future, you would just double click on a percentage and get the details of how that calculation was done. So how you use the OEE portion of the portal is simply, or for example, could be with regular meetings with the shop floor. And historically, if we look at certain areas or departments that have a low OEE percentage, it's time to look at the standards, or time to look at, you know, material handling, or whatever the root cause for low OEE achievement could be. Now, when you think about it, okay, if you track OEE in another metric we're about to look into, we call it schedule adherence. If people are working on jobs that are in the right order, okay, regardless whether you use throughput or not, if people are working in the right sequence and their OEE performance is accurate, and you're planning for sufficient capacity given your load, if you track OEE and schedule adherence, you're pretty much guaranteeing high on-time delivery. Of course, things will happen. There'll be scrap, there'll be absenteeism, machines break down, etc., or rework. But you've drastically increased your probability to have a high percentage of on-time delivery. So the OEE is completely outside of the throughput data collection that you know today. What we're doing is we're connecting either to the ERP or to the MES, or to, in some cases, to throughput if the information, historical information is collected. And we are summarizing it either per day or per week via a calculation that we start from the industry standard, but we usually end up adjusting it for the purpose that you need in your company. So that's the OEE component of the portal. Let's now move to, I want to go to schedule adherence first, and then we'll come back on master planning because it flows with what I was trying to explain about OEE. If you're tracking OEE and you're making sure that people are adhering to the schedule, they're working in the order you ask them to work, you're increasing your likelihood of high on-time delivery. Let's go back to the home page. Let's look at schedule adherence and look at this report. So this is one version of the schedule adherence tracking tool that we've developed over the last few years. I'm saying one version because there could be multiple ways to measure schedule adherence, but let me explain how we're doing it in this portal. For any work center, and you'll recognize the demo work center, the good old FRG 100, MLG 11X work centers, on any given date, and this could be the last trailing 5 days, last trailing 8 days, we calculate a score, okay? And I'll explain in a second how the score is calculated, but we are basically tracking the number of released jobs on a given day at a given work center. So for instance, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. There you go. So on 7/24, July 24th, on the CNC drill, we had 11 total jobs on the machine. Of those 11, 8 were past due. Okay, one was started among the past due 8 past due jobs, and we did not start any future jobs. So in this version of the schedule adherence, we're simply saying, as long as you're working on past due jobs in the right sequence, you've done your job. Now, OEE will track whether or not they worked at the right pace, but we're just making sure here that we're producing the jobs in the right order. So in this version, a flavor of the score, we're basically saying you'll get 100% as long as we're not going to fault you for having past due at this time. We're just going to tell you you need to work on past due jobs. However, on 7/25, on the same work center, we had 13 jobs in queue. 9 were past due. The work center completed or started 3 of them. And then we jumped out into the future to create a job that should not have been started. So here we're basically saying there are 9 past due jobs that are available to you. They're in queue. You worked on 3 of them, and then you jump to the future. So we're giving you a score of 3 past due jobs divided by 9, which is one way to measure schedule adherence. As long as the score, if they're not doing the right thing, we came up with this calculation as one way to highlight situations that are lower than 100%. So 33%. So 1 of 3 jobs, 3 divided by 9, is what we worked on. And then you double click or just simply click on the work center, on the score. And today being 7/25, here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 past due jobs, and 1, 2, 3 of them were started. Then we jumped into the future and basically logged on a job and additional ones as well out into the future, jobs that were supposed to, for those who are familiar with the throughput verbiage, or you remember the DDB dates, if some of those dates are future, you're going to get a ding if you work on future jobs. Okay, so back to main page. So this is one way to keep historical information on the performance of the shop floor. So in essence, when you think about it, whether you use throughput or not, again, if you use schedule adherence, track schedule adherence, and enforce it, and you measure OEE, and ahead of time you made sure that you didn't overload the shop floor by having some kind of balance between the load you need to produce and the capacity based on the defined calendars, That's a pretty safe way to make sure you have a decent on-time delivery performance. So let me go back, portal home, and let's go into the last but not least application. The master planning application is basically, for those who are familiar with NPSP, you'll recognize the logic. Actually, NPSP, Mapix did not invent the gross to net explosion graph. But in our case, we're making it, we're putting it on steroids, basically. So here's the master planning home. I'm not going to filter by part. I'm just going to ask for the entire list. And we get a list of all parts in the system. It could be filtered, obviously, but let me drill down to the BAG MC10 material and see what the gross to net explosion looks like. It's taken a few seconds here, and then we're coming back. Let me zoom out of this. All right, slowly but surely. So this is displaying the part number, the part description, the type of transaction that is going to occur over time, the past due supply or demand, if there is any. In this case, there's none. So we're starting with 0 on hand, projected on hand 0. And then we're looking at 11/17, 11/18, 11/19, 20, etc. So we're looking at day by day with the week number right at the top. Several companies work by week number, so we added the week number there. And so by day, it's telling us what the projected on-hand quantity will be. So on 11/22, we have a customer order projected completion date 4/10. So if you run auto resync with or without drums, but with the pure manufacturing due dates from XA, if you're using XA, or the target dates you're starting with, this is a MRP type view where we're not, before we accept any push out, we can easily see what our supply and demand will be over time. So if we keep going, we're going to be at -10 on 11/22. That's the starting quantity until the week of just a few days later on 11/28. So 6 days later, we have a planned supply coming from either the ERP or throughput, and another planned supply for 38 the following day, 60, 186. So it keeps a running total of the projected quantity on hand. So that's all and good, but it could be, for those who have used NPSP in the past, it could be kind of cumbersome to track exceptions I need to work on. So here is a tool that we've developed, and we have several ideas about other ways or means to look at this information. And I'm going to say, for instance, November 25th, show me parts with a projected negative quantity on hand before 11/25. One of the features we'll add is show me parts that have a negative projected balance within their lead time. Outside of the lead time is longer term. Let's assume that we'll process transactions as time goes by. But if we have a problem I need to be aware now, before 11/25, I can look at those exceptions. So the number of parts is much shorter, but these are truly the exceptions you need to look at as a planner. So again, I'm going to go back to the same part, and I'll show you other ones as well. Okay, so basically the calculation is done for all the parts in this list. Comes back and shows us that before 11/25, we do have for this part a negative projected on hand. So this is a part I need to, as a planner, I need to look at. I'll return to part selections. Actually, I picked the wrong menu here. I should have picked return to the previous page. I'm just going to regenerate it. Pick the same date and look at another part quick. I'm going to look at a finished product, a CMPLC 10. Data's being crunched, and we are seeing exception. And again, before 1125, we have a projected quantity on hand that's negative because we have only an open supply of 8 with a due date that's actually past due, and a customer order for 15 coming in on 1121, bringing the projected quantity on hand to 7. Okay, so we're adding almost on a weekly basis some features to that to make it easier and easier for planners to work with the master planning tool. But it is basically an MPS or a gross to net explosion with exception messages and alerts. So you only have to look at if you're operating in, again, an infinite capacity, infinite material, such as any ERP system, the master planning tool could help you, launch MOs on time, launch purchase orders on time as well. Okay. So that is all 4 applications that we've developed. We're in the process of developing additional applications that will also be available via the portal. So let me just conclude again by saying that just give you a high level of terms and conditions. So there is a one-time setup fee for the portal, and that fee varies based on the number of applications that you pick in the portal, the ERP that's in place, and how quickly and easily available data is. There is a monthly fee, which is $3,250, including unlimited support and 1 day per month of coaching during the first year. This is very, very important to us because we want to be your partners in this, and we want to you to realize value from this application. And we think it'll unleash some aspects of throughput that you didn't go into in the past because there was no availability of data, or it was a little obscure to most people. So we're trying to bring tools to make it easier for people. But we want to be your partner. We offer 1 day a month of coaching, either on site or remote, to answer all questions, be part of the meetings that you're having to discuss various problems. And it'll help us help you, because we want to make this tool so user-friendly that it is the go-to tool to track any historical information if you're a throughput user. What you'll also get with this is future upgrades at no additional cost. And if we develop other applications, you'll get a discount on adding applications to the portal as well. But you don't have to, of course. So you can stay with the limited the 4 applications we discussed today. So in conclusion, here's how you contact us. If this is of interest, we would be thrilled to discuss with you after this one-on-one, because we don't know what your particular ERP is. A lot of you use XA. We're very familiar with XA. But depending on your objectives, some of these tools may not be usable in their current form. We'd love to work with you to make them usable, just so we have as many people signed up on the portal as we can and create a community out there. Okay, so I'm going to open it up. So first, bear with me. I'm going to look at the chat box, see if any questions are there. And I'm going to unmute you all so you can ask questions. I think everybody should be unmuted. So go ahead if you have any questions. There are no questions. You're going to watch me drink my Coke for 5 minutes.
Hi, this is Karen Carper. I do have one question for you.
Yes, please.
Are you also going to get some similar tool for Visual Planner?
Actually, this is a very good question, because 3 of the 4 applications you have seen today are 100% applicable to Visual Planner. The only one that is not is the constraints analysis tool, because Visual Planner does not have a material constraint or drum constraints or any type of drum scheduling module or application. So in fact, next week, we're gathering a list of VPI users that we think would be interested in the portal. And Karen, if please turn on anybody you know that's using VPI if you think they'll benefit from it. We're going to present the 3 applications that 100% again apply to VPI customers. And I think they apply even more to them because they get limited functionality from VPI. It's 100% what they need for more simple customers, but they can certainly benefit from historical information that the portal provides. So we're making it available to both Throughput and VPI customers, and we're doing the same webinar next week with VPI users, the ones we can find.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Karen. I love Karen.
I've got a quick question.
Yes, please.
Unfortunately, I was on the phone with a customer, and I wasn't able to attend. Matter of fact, I just signed on to questions slide. First question is that I'd like to know, was this recorded, and will it be available
Yes, it was recorded. I missed the first few seconds, but it is recorded, and we'll be happy to send it to you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and reply to the invite so that you get that address. And then also, along with what Karen said, I would also be very interested in viewing the VPI version as well.
Okay, excellent. We'll make sure we send you an invite. Would you mind giving us your name? Is this Michael?
No, this is Joe Gill.
Okay, Joe Gill. Sounds great.
Probably come in as my name. It's probably GTPM4. So.
Okay, I see. Yep, that's what it is.
Which email should I respond to?
Respond to Ralph DiBartello, the first one. And I'll take I'll take a screenshot of this, or replying to the invite. Actually, we'll get you to Alenka and Ralph will work together. We'll make sure you get it.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hey, are you currently a VPI user?
I'm actually a consultant with ISE.
Oh, great. Okay. Very good. Sounds good. Any other questions? Very good. So we are, here's what we would like to ask you. Ralph will follow up with you individually, those who have signed up, not necessarily to force the portal on you or anything. We, at this stage, have developed what you've seen today is very solid, but the world opens up for us. If there are things you feel could be or should be part of the portal to complement your use of Throughput, to make it easier, to make it give you a chance to realize more benefits, or quite frankly, in some cases, Throughput needs a better reputation within the company. And if you think that there are some angles or things that we could add to it, I mean, this is your word or your comments are invaluable to us. So Ralph will follow up with you just to get your feedback. So please respond if he leaves you a message or sends you an email, and set up just 10 minutes of your day to help us, please, and help us help you in doing so. And this is not going to be any high pressure sales pitch. It's just we're trying to gather as much feedback from the Throughput community as we can. So that's what makes us better. That's what ultimately makes you better. So we'll be following up with you individually if you wouldn't mind responding. All right. There is, I believe, one question. Yes, we will send a survey. This is coming from internal. We will send a survey to all the attendees. And again, your response would be very, very appreciated. So we'll follow up with the survey email, easier to respond to, and maybe a phone call depending on your level of interest. But please give us some feedback. So one last chance for additional questions. All right. So this concludes this webinar. Keep in mind that this is part of a series. We're trying to get very disciplined in delivering as many webinars as we can. I think we're going to try to do one per month for throughput users, VPI users, manufacturing companies in general. Share case studies, share the portal which we've developed, share tricks of the trade. So stay tuned for invitations to those future webinars. So once again, thank you for taking precious time from your very busy day and attending. We have this session recorded. If you'd like anybody else from your company or you'd like to view it yourself again, reach out to us and we'll be happy to send you the recording. Take care, everybody. Have a great day, and let's go deliver those customer orders.